You walk up to a set of glass doors. You plant your hand on the flat metal plate, step forward, and push. But the door doesn't move. Your wrist jams, your shoulder jolts, and you're left standing there awkwardly. Or maybe you're making dinner. You turn the dial, wait 5 minutes, and reach for the pot, only to find the water is ice cold, while the empty burner right next to it is glowing red hot. When this happens, our internal reaction is almost entirely uniform. We mutter a quick apology to anyone watching. We decide we're clumsy. We think, I'm being stupid. But those moments of sudden physical awkwardness are rarely your fault. Millions of highly intelligent people fall into these exact same traps every single day. Psychologists refer to this as learned helplessness. It's a condition where repeated, seemingly minor failures condition us to believe we are the problem. We start to assume we lack some basic mechanical competence. That quiet anxiety doesn't stay in the kitchen. It scales up. It's the reason a new piece of software at work fills us with dread, or why we assume we simply can't figure out how to program a modern thermostat. Back in the 1980s, a cognitive scientist named Don Norman started paying close attention to these everyday frustrations. He noticed that users were constantly blaming themselves for making errors. Norman proposed a completely different view. If a capable person fails at a simple task, human error is a myth. The failure belongs entirely to the industrial design of the object. We have spent decades apologizing for the physical world. It is time we start pointing the finger at the architects who built it. Look closely at this image. This is artist Jacques Carelman's famous coffee pot for masochists. It is terrible on purpose. The joke is immediate. By placing the spout and the handle on the exact same vertical plane, attempting to pour a cup of coffee guarantees you will dump boiling water directly onto your own wrist. It's a great visual punchline, but everyday objects hide their flaws much better. They do this by masking their affordances, which is simply the specific design term for what an object can physically do. A chair affords sitting, a knob affords turning. To tell us how to use an affordance, designers use signifiers. These are the visual clues, markings, or physical shapes that communicate instructions to our brain. This creates what is now famously called a Norman door. The flat metal plate gives your brain a very clear physical signifier. Push here. But then, contradicting your intuition, your brain reads the physical shape faster than the text. When the physical rules of an object clash with its labels, you are forced to guess. This friction happens because the environment is largely built by engineers. And engineers, who spend their days working with logical, precise systems, tend to design for people as if we operate exactly the same way. We don't. We are messy, creative, and highly associative. We operate in a world full of constant interruptions. When logic dictates the design, it directly forces the user to rely on what Norman calls knowledge in the head. We are required to memorize arbitrary, secret rules to operate basic tools in our own homes. Look at this stove. A straight line of identical dials runs across the back. Down below, the burners sit in a squared grid. The controls have no spatial relationship to the hardware. Good design puts knowledge in the world, arranging dials in a square. When you turn on the wrong burner, it isn't a lapse in your intelligence. It's the result of a tool that demands rigid memorization instead of supporting flexible human intuition. Every time you pick up a tool or approach a door, you are engaging in a silent conversation with an invisible designer. Think of this relationship as a triangle. On one side, you have the designer. They hold a perfect conceptual model of how the object works, but they can't stand next to you in your kitchen to explain it. All they can leave behind is the physical object itself. That object is the system image. It is the only medium of communication allowed in this relationship. A physical product is essentially a frozen set of instructions. If that system image stutters or lies or confuses you, the entire conversation fails. The cure to this logic trap is an approach known as human-centered design. Instead of expecting people to adapt to the rigid constraints of a machine, human-centered design builds the technology around the messy, interruptible reality of human behavior. So, the next time you encounter a cryptic row of dials or find yourself fighting with an uncooperative interface, refuse to internalize the blame. Notice the objects that serve you effortlessly, the ones that map perfectly to your physical instincts without ever drawing attention to themselves. And give yourself some grace. You aren't stupid. The design is.